Hi everybody, I hope you're all swell. One of the things that people ask me very often is what it feels to be blind. Thankfully, it is about 27 years now since I became blind as a teenager, and it's much easier to talk about. And I have no uh, shyness or a stigma to discuss it because I think blindness is my experience and it's not inferior or superior to any other experience in life. So I always tell them that it's like standing behind a hazy, dark, and you know, a pretty uncertain screen, or it's like somebody putting a hand on your eyes, trying to shield you from something or not wanting to see you something. Both these cases, you want to badly remove the hand or the screen. But when you stand before your challenges, when you face crisis situations in life, how much ever you try hard, you won't be able to remove the screen or the hand. You got to pretty much go with it. And especially if you have a kind of genetic degenerative retinal condition, such as the one that I have, you kind of settle to go with it pretty much for the rest of your life. And it's not a big wonder why a lot of people get easily scared about going blind. You know, not just going blind, even so much as wearing spectacles is something that people are scared of, simply because it is not a nice, comfortable situation for people not to see. And so it is also quite understandable why people get so hopeless sometimes and so deflated and diffident. Um Back at the time when I was a teenager, it was like that for me, except for my mother. Nobody else could offer a word of hope for me. Not because they want me to struggle, but because they don't know what it is, or how a blind person like me could be hopeful. So all that they could say is that you be happy that at least you are assured of a home, and you can pick up a few hobbies and enjoy your life for forever. But of course, you all know that's not the way life. That's not how life works. And there are days when I was depressed and sad, and I was thinking what to do about it, because it's like a man caught in a jail. It's like you are trapped in a place that you wouldn't like to be. You wouldn't want to be. And it was like a frenetic search for a fuel tank that would energize me internally, that would keep me going towards life, and towards things that I desired, I wanted to do always. And guess what? I did, grab that fuel tank. My hands did grab the fuel tank. And what's that fuel tank? Well, that's spiritual practices. A lot of you people think that spiritual practices are meant for the rishis, or the hermits in the cave, or once I told a friend of mine excitedly that how good it is to connect with one's inner self, and then he just gave a stare and then said, hey, I'm not that old, I'm not too old for such things. And that really clearly shows how disconnected sometimes we are, about things that we label as spiritual, and keep it away, rather than trying to use it to enrich our life and to realize our life's goals. In simpler terms, I would even say that spirituality is like the fuel tank that you need, especially when you want to drive your car towards greater and higher or dreamy destinations. And spirituality is often not clearly understood also. because these are traditions and customs that are very steeped, very deep in various religious practices, um, and sometimes these are too up and close and personal that we don't recognize them for what it is. It's like a family, your family heirloom, gathering dust in your loft. You don't realize how valuable it is unless you actually dust it off and examine it close by. What I'm trying to say is that all of us have prayers, worships, and a lot of rituals in our family traditions. No matter which religion we belong to, no matter what our nationality or creed or caste or whatever, because each community has its own tradition, and sometimes it is easier to question them without examining their proper purpose. Um, you know, each of us have the right to question. We have to question what we do, but scrutinizing something is light years away from just questioning, and it is important that we scrutinize what they are, because if you do that, you know how to separate the wheat from the chaff, and you know how to imbibe healthy traditions that you could use for the enrichment of your life. Okay, having said all this, let me talk about 5 things what spiritual practices can do to you. And I am telling this basically from my experience. These are not scriptural readings. I'm not going to quote the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or any of those texts, because if you distill them, as I was telling you, if you distill them and keep the essence, it will all mean the same thing. Okay? And whatever may be your spiritual practice, if you apply these 5 principles, you will understand if the practice that you are doing is useful for you or not. Okay, what's the first one? The first one is conserving your emotions. So now I don't have to tell you that behind every action there is energy, and behind every thought there is emotion. So these are the things that we learn to put behind our noblest of ideas. When people say simply that focus on your goals, what they mean is put your energy and your emotions behind those goals. And most of the times what happens is that we let our energy and emotion spill out in different directions, so much that when you need to rev up your car and go to a particular destination, you are out of fuel. Your fuel tank is empty. So that is why conserving your emotions is one of the most important life skills that our traditions have taught us. So once you learn how to keep your emotions together, it could be any practice that you can do. It could be a prayer, it could be a simple worship of your family deity, or it could be even a modern practice like neuro-linguistic programming. What they teach you is basically how to funnel your emotions, how to channelize your emotions towards things that appeal to you a lot. It could be an imagination, it could be a picture, or it could be some kind of an idea. It could be a vague idea, whatever it is. And we all know that once you channelize your emotions, channelize your energy towards such things, they become reality. I don't really have to explain that part, because if you take any self-help book or any manifestation book, that's what they tell you. Number 2, clarity of mind. Thoughts are like, weeds. It's like a wild vegetation, like a forest. It is important for us to weed out the thoughts that we don't need from and keep the ones that we do need. How do you get that? How do you understand? How do you do this? How does this process work actually for us? that's when you'll have to understand the need for silence and stillness. Silence and stillness is like, keeping a pond or a lake without any ripples, so that on the surface you can see the reflection of the sky. It is like that. Once you learn silence and stillness, you can pretty much understand, you know, get some clarity on how you want your life to go. Okay, and of course, again, I don't want to get it too much into how you achieve it, because meditation is one of the things, and we all know how to, we all have our own methods of doing it. Once again, I will emphasize that it's important for us to go back to our traditions and see what's there, because you never know, there could be something there that you would stumble on that will help you progress in life. That is number 2. Number 3 is value addition through self-help. I don't really believe that there are some people who are super special and some people who are not. As a blind person, there are a lot of people who told me that I must feel inferior because I'm blind. I never believed that. And I'm sure that holds true for anyone, because one of the things that I also realize is that whether you're sighted or blind or able or disabled, end of the day, you determine your abilities and you determine your limitations. Sometimes there are people who think that they don't have any limitations at all, and that's when they achieve great heights. And such people who achieve great heights, if you analyze their lives, you understand that they learn pretty much by themselves. They don't wait for people to teach them. One of the things that we say is that, oh God, I should have learned this long back. No. Great achievers never have any regrets in their lives. They look back at their lives with satisfaction. And one of the things that they also learn to do is to understand at what point they reach a saturation and move to the next big challenge. Again, for such things, you need certain level of mental clarity. Okay? And again, I don't need to tell you that if you want to keep progressing in life, you need to keep going for greater challenges. And and to understand the greater challenges, you need a sharper thought, clarity of mind, channelization of your emotions, and the positive attitude to life. So all these are things that you gain from spirituality. Number 4, separating the wheat from the chaff. I told you, I spoke a little bit about this earlier. The whole world, including the internet, including this video, revolves around an important concept today, which is competing for your attention. That's what all of us do. In fact, advertisement industry, the ad industry is today based on the idea that they can somehow get your attention and sell that product. So that shows how much of a value your attention has got. Only thing is that sometimes we don't realize how valuable it is. So what happens is that there are things that compete for our attention, not just the television, internet. These are basically the most dominant things. But even otherwise, there are people in our lives. There are activities in our lives that we don't really get anything out of, or we don't contribute anything to. So how do you realize that something is useful or not? It's like, when you contribute something to it, you enrich somebody's life or somebody enriches your life. So if these two things doesn't happen, probably you know what is good and useful and what is not. And I don't definitely believe in positive and negative. I don't believe in good and bad. There's nothing called good and bad. There's only useful and useless. And even cancer cells are a kind of proteins. And your body is full of proteins. Only that the cancer cells are useless to us. So to get this level of clarity, there has to be certain inner refinement. Again, that refinement happens through spiritual practices. Fifth and the most important point is that the value of a community. Our life as human beings is not completely fulfilled unless we contribute something to other people's lives. Why? Because we don't exist in isolation. Even as a businessman, and especially as a businessman, it is important that we put our money behind making other people's lives comfortable or put a smile on other people's lives. If you don't achieve these things, probably you have you probably need to put a lot of imagination behind your business, because those are the things that make a business successful. And even otherwise, if you want value addition to your life, if you want certain personal fulfillment and a personal or even a professional fulfillment, you got to understand the fact that you have to do something for the community around you to grow. And that is how any person has achieved or attained certain level of fulfillment. Also, what does it teach you to work with the community? It teaches you that you are a part of this great ocean called humanity, and that makes you more grateful. That also makes you more humane, and these are the qualities that you need to be more grounded in order for you to continue in the path of progress. So I hope this makes sense, and I'd like to know what kind of spiritual practices that you do, what traditions that you come from, and also when you get time to spend at your private chamber, do you meditate or read spiritual books, or even watch videos or whatever? Let me know, and I'd like to hear from you. And also, if you have any comments or feedback about this channel or about this video, please go ahead and post it. And until we meet next time, stay swell.